Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So there's very little as awesome as live music, and I've done shows about Lansing's new Grewal Hall and the forthcoming Ovation performance spaces. Here to discuss how bands and spaces connect to allow great performances to happen in a wide variety of venues is the founder of Angry Talent in Entertainment, Mr. Dan Laird. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, good to be here.
All right, Dan.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that. I saw that on the social handles. I didn't just make that up. That is how you are referred to. How'd that start?
Yeah, it's just as a junior, and I'm always looking for some kind of individuality. But
got it.
No, for whatever reason, growing up, I don't know if it's just having a 2-syllable name. No one really calls me Dan. It was always Dan Laird, and so I started challenging that and saying, why am I always Dan Laird? So they started having a kind of like a joke where they would pretend to try and then fail. So Dan Laird. And as the joke got older, the pause got shorter, and eventually it was just Dan Laird. So, and I stuck with it.
Fantastic. All right. So you're a musician.
Yes.
This is where all the roots kind of come from. So talk about how'd you get started in music? What do you play or do? And where can we find you as a musician?
My origins, it sounds like a Bryan Adams song, straight out of summer of '69. So I started in high school, just right place at the right time. Had some guys that were in a garage band, and they desperately needed a singer for a gig that I found out later was later that week. And they knew I sang in the play or choirs or whatever.
Yeah.
And just out of desperation, they asked me, and they ended up becoming some of my best friends. And from there, they taught me, just some chords on guitar, and worked some jobs in restaurants, scraping money together to buy that first PA system and the first guitar, and just kind of grew from there. So
classic. That's
absolutely
great. It's funny to me that, being in the play, being in the choir and stuff in high school was not exactly a stamp of coolness.
No.
Yet, turning it into live performance and being on stage in a band is the opposite of that. So I'm not sure why we can't,
absolutely,
why we can't make that more mainstream.
Just being able to, belt out. At that time, it was the mid '90s, so belting out some Nirvana lyrics and being able to be loud and in key was that's all it really took.
There you go. That's great. So, Angry Talent Entertainment. How did that dovetail out of your personal involvement in music? I'm assuming you were trying to play some gigs in small venues, or how did that all kind of come together? Again,
it's kind of all right place at the right time, just by chance. This was a big part was coming out of COVID. I use we when I talk about Angry Talent a lot because I don't like to put my name out there, but a big part was coming out of COVID. So I'd been in bands for a long time. At that time, I was in a duo that we'd played together for 15 years. COVID obviously broke that up. There was not a lot of performances going on for obvious reasons. And as things started to come back, the owners of the Peanut Barrel in East Lansing saw me playing out in the alley for a city event, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to have music at our place. Would you consider it?" So I started a regular Friday solo gig there weekly, and as things started to pick up and my band started to become a little bit more busy, I needed those Fridays back. And so they just said, "Hey, we trust you if you want to start finding your own replacements when you need to step out." I said, okay. And having, been playing for, 30 years or whatever, I had quite the Rolodex of musician friends.
I can imagine, yeah.
So, and a lot of these guys, and women, they don't play around the area as much, and they really started appreciating having somewhere in their hometown to play. And they just started asking, "Hey, do you have other places for us to play?" I said, "No, but let's see what happens." So I just by chance started hitting the pavement and going to venues and say, "Hey, here's what I do here. You can talk to them and see how I do." And they picked up on the idea. And about a year later, I started adding, half dozen venues, and 2 years later, another half dozen, and just finding more and more places for people to play. And I started backing off of the gig myself, and because I just really enjoyed being able to provide an opportunity for folks to play and just get a variety of music back in the area.
Right. Well, we need it.
Yeah.
Is there a place where you can find all the live music going on? Is there a good portal for?
In general, so there's a couple. I run a co-admin, a Facebook page on local Lansing music, the Angry Talent Facebook page and website. You post all the events that I at least host and put together out there, so you can find at the venues that I work with, and then the one-off special events and things like that too. So, there's a lot, and it's always growing, and just trying to just accommodate and allow for opportunities.
That's great. Yeah, I know every now and then my wife and I'll spin into a Thursday night or even on the weekends, and we underplan our day trips or all that kind of stuff. We're like, it'd be great to go see live music tonight. Where should we go? So that's good that we can check out your sites and socials,
right,
to see if we can find it.
And and a big part of it too is I think, having been on both sides of the coin now, of being a musician looking for gigs and then being the person that's trying to find musicians to play gigs. The biggest, we always talk about why has this not made this connection before? And I think part of it is just no one's ever asked. When I've gone into places, usually a lot of times I don't know what it takes to run a restaurant or a venue or a bar,
Right.
And usually they want to get their legs under them, and then music is kind of an afterthought. And so they haven't planned for it. They don't have the connections. And I got to imagine that just finding a band to play on a Friday is probably one of the last things they need to worry about and keeping their restaurant going. And so they might find, a handful of musicians, and they're like, we're good, and we don't want to, have to keep scouring the globe for more. And so they just keep those rotations, and that keeps, other musicians out. And then there's others, they just don't know where to begin. And
right.
I offer that insight to say it's not as difficult as you think it is, and just let me use my expertise to find them, plug them in, and give them all the information, all the information, and ultimately the goal is not just to have the musicians succeed, but the venues as well.
Right. So would you say that you have more venues looking for bands or more bands looking for venue? Because you assist both sides of that equation, right?
I do. It's a little bit more helping the venues, I think, than the musicians. There's always going to be more musicians than there are gigs to play,
right?
Which is a big problem. But I think, and I actually do that by design. I don't want to represent musicians or bands, mostly just because of capacity. My time, I don't really, at this time anyway, don't have the time to give them everything that they probably need to succeed. So I don't want, they have no obligations to me. I help them when I help them, and they're free to do what they need to do outside of the gigs that I find them. And like I said, that's partly by design from my own experience. I remember as a 19-year-old kid in East Lansing, and we had a show. We were just kids with a garage band. We barely knew what we were doing, And there was this band who, they were in their 30s, which at the time we thought they were ancient.
Sure.
And I wish I could be back there. And they had told us, they said, hey, can we open for you at other shows? Because, we've signed with this deal where, any gig he finds us, we obviously give him a cut, but we're committed to him. And now we have to give him a cut for gigs that we find ourselves. And we're just kind of floating out there with this obligation. And I said, that's just not the way to do things. And, and I wanted to make sure that Angry Talent is providing an environment where, musicians can thrive, and there's no obligation, and they don't have to feel like locked in to something that's not right for them. Right.
Okay. So there's a fee for your service. Obviously, this is a for-profit entity. Who tends to cover that? Is that you get a piece of what the band agrees to with the bar, or do you arrange that with the music venue? Because these are obviously not all bars. But how does that work?
Yeah, so it can go one of two ways. So with smaller venues, if it's a smaller fee, like I'll usually just charge a small booking fee to the musician. In some cases, I have deals where if it's like a regular thing that service I'm providing for them, and I usually try to go above and beyond with marketing and things like that. That the venue will provide a stipend for me to do all of these services for them. So usually they're bigger venues. And in that case, I don't do the booking fees. And so it's some way to bring some income to keep me to pay for the things like the marketing tools and all that stuff. But
got it. And do you just receive unsolicited, you get bands kind of kicking you emails or on your contact page on your socials and stuff saying, hey, we got a gig. How do we engage you to help us find places to play?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, that's my biggest problem right now. I'm the word has kind of gotten out, and I'm maxing at capacity, and just my goal for 2025 and just moving beyond is to start getting maybe bringing someone on the team to start handling those emails, because I get emails, things through the website, text messages. And it's been very difficult to try and keep up with all that. Because like I said, there's more musicians than there are gigs. So.
Right. And musicians, I would imagine, are notoriously maybe unreliable or even not good quality. Like, do you have to vet these folks a little bit? Watch videos of their performances to get a gauge as to who they are and whether they're worth representing?
Yes. And, it's been tough to find a delicate way to handle it, because yes, there are some times where it's you feel like you're in the audition rounds of American Idol, and not everybody's ready for prime time, but there are places for people who are building up their skills to play, and that's why I've always been very conscious of making sure that I'm not looking to dominate the globe, and take over every venue. So like
sure,
there are some places where they cater to up and comers and people who are just starting, and those performers have a chance to succeed there, and I don't want to touch that. I want them to have those places. Some of the places where they are asking me to make sure that I'm vetting, then I have to start looking and picking and be a little bit more choosy with who I bring in. But yeah.
Right on. Makes sense. Hey, I want to give a nod to my folks, my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. When it comes to creating the best living and working environments for the community, no one does it better than my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. Brent Forsberg and his team create vibrant, holistic communities that inspire growth and encourage belonging. Focused on building stronger connections for people, a Forsberg project is always in tune with balancing relationships to create the optimum human experience. Since the 1950s, Forsberg has been enhancing the quality of life in the communities they serve by following the principles of regenerative growth and aligning the resources and tools available. Reach out to my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company by calling 517-349-9330 or check out their website at lansingrealestate.com. So it's funny you mentioned that different venues have different needs, right? So there are places that are a little bit more open mic night, or
sure,
a little bit more chill, and bring in this new singer-songwriter that's been on stage 4 times or whatever, right? And other places that are looking, it's like, no, this is, I'm gonna have 500 people in this room, then they want to hear something, and so do they how involved do you need to be about like genre? Like, a hip hop show is different than a rock show, is different than a singer songwriter. And, you got 6 guys versus a husband and wife team, or, whatever.
Sure.
How do you navigate all of that?
Well, it definitely takes, I want to make sure that I am accustomed with the venue, know what their needs are, what their clientele is like. It's kind of nice that being a musician myself, I'm my own best plan B. So like if a musician, has to cancel, something happens or whatever, I can step in and fill in. So usually I do like to play a place myself once if I had a new venue that I've picked up, just so I get a feel for it. I always put together event info sheets for all the performers, so they've got pictures of where they're setting up, what the venue provides them, what they need to bring. I want to make sure that when they show up, if it's the busiest night that venue has ever had, the musician is 95% confident of what they need to do without having to bother anybody.
Right.
It just makes everybody feel at ease. And so it's just one of those extra touches that I like to do with Angry Talent. But yeah, getting to know a venue, making sure that they've got the right kind of performer. And that's where some of those places that, they're not so much concerned necessarily about the quality or how great the music is, but they know this is a local place. They've got tons of friends and family, and they can bring those people in, and they have a good time. And that's ultimately what it's about. If this performer, maybe they don't necessarily sing as in key as others, but they bring people in, and everybody has a good time with them, and that's really what it's all about.
Right. So what's your geography? How far will you go for these types of matchmaking?
Well, are you asking me or asking my wife? Because those are the 2 very different questions. I've been spreading out. I've been very fortunate to work with MASH in East Lansing, and because they have other locations, I've now been able to branch out and work with them as well. So they have one in Ypsilanti and one in Ann Arbor, soon to be one in Grand Rapids. So I've been very fortunate to kind of spread out that way.
Got it. Okay.
Which is nice because then they give me, when I first start with them, they give me your list of all of your regulars that come in. So I get to know new bands that are, further out in the area. There's a ton of special events that I'm also familiar with, like the organizers, just from my own playing in years past. So that's kind of an avenue I like to get in. You can't drive 20 miles in Michigan without, finding a town with a festival of their own.
Right, right.
And they've always got a contact that you can talk to and a stage to put somebody on, which is great.
Huh. So, and this whole Angry Talent is since COVID. So we're talking you're 3, 4, 5 years into this.
Yeah, just finished the second year. October 4th is the official anniversary.
Got it. Okay. And is this your full-time gig?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah. All right. Not yet.
Not yet. I would love it to be. But yeah, not quite yet. So we're still building that. And that's where we're going to be at the tipping point of how far do we build before it becomes that.
You mentioned a wife.
Yes.
There might be something to be said there. Got it. Okay. And so is there a wheelhouse from like a size, venue, or notoriety of the band like that you would consider something you're really comfortable with, or are you filling? How big of a space do you tend to fill?
Well, I think one of the biggest trends in music, I've been in full 4-piece bands. I've done a successful duo for a long time. I think one of the big trends in full bands is for the lead singer and a guitarist to also have a side duo project. I think, unfortunately, one of the biggest issues that we have, especially in the Lansing area, and I'm sure all around, is that stages are kind of an endangered species. And so most venues will have music as an afterthought, and so they don't have necessarily the space planned ahead for full bands. And so duos and tight trios are probably more accessible easily to book, just because you can put them in more places. I think that's one of the big things that I'm happy to see opportunities like, with the new Grewal Hall and Ovation coming soon, places like the Green Door where you can actually have full bands, Max and the Avenue, all of those places that, you can actually bring in not even just full bands, but even like original bands and things like that. But from an accessibility standpoint, usually the smaller acts are easy to get and say more opportunities.
Right. I think at the Nut House, we'll often have people in, especially in the what they can do their outdoor patio.
Correct.
And then Lansing Brewing has space. I think Eagle Monk Brewing will have even like a open mic or small. I think that. But anyway, I mean, are there many more?
Yeah, so there are a lot of places that will still handle kind of their own booking in-house, and in those cases, I've been fortunate with some of them just to kind of provide some a la carte services. So they say, hey, we need someone for this date. Can you hook us up? And I'll find somebody, and that's great, But then there's other venues that I'm full on. I'm their guy, and so I'll put together the marketing materials, the monthly promo calendars, the social media events, the Instagram friendly versions of those photos, like the whole package. So it's a mix. Yeah. And honestly, it's nice when you can kind of team up with other people in this type of position to work together to help provide these spaces.
The bands that you're trying to hook up with these folks, do you ever get approached by like people having weddings or corporate events, like one-off stuff where it's not necessarily a venue? They're going to use a venue, but they're looking for music. Has anyone in that ether kind of pinged you for help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just recently provided, and it's all word of mouth too. And provided a band for a retirement party not too long ago up north. There have been some requests for not the reception bands, but just musicians for the wedding themselves. And it's all kind of just unique requests. And once the word gets out, those people pass on to somebody else, and they say, yeah, we'll call Angry Talent when we need something. There's a new venue, a wedding venue, Harvest Moon, I believe it's called. Hopefully I'm not saying that wrong. But yeah, and just it's finding those partners in the area that say, hey, whenever you need, if your clients need somebody, call me and I'll help fill that gap.
Fantastic. And when it comes to filling gaps for homes, we all need a place to call home. Chris Silker of Keller Williams Advantage and Team offers the expertise that you're looking for. He's helped clients navigate the complicated world of real estate in mid-Michigan for over 10 years, providing the best information possible at the right time to empower the best decisions. Whether you're a first-time home buyer looking for a local expert to guide you from point A to point B, searching for an income property in the competitive Lansing market, right-sizing your life, or searching for that dream home, Chris Silker and the Advantage and Team is the name to trust in Greater Lansing real estate. Visit advantageandteam.kw.com or call Chris Silker himself at 517-242-9251 today to find the home of your dreams. So what else do people need to know about getting in touch with Angry Talent Entertainment?
Well, you can find, there is the website, angrytalententertainment.com. It's lengthy, but it's unique.
Yeah.
Facebook, the whole deal. You can email me, text me. But just one of the biggest thing I just want to make sure I mention, you mentioned the kind of the is this my full-time gig? And I've kind of set it up so that it kind of can't be. One of my, big ambitions with Angry Talent has been just to cultivate kind of a music community. And that's where I've taken it seriously as a business to kind of put together what are those, main three pillars, that I want to have, the mission, so to speak. And obviously the first one is going to be advocating for musicians' time and talent, making sure that they're not just working hard for $50 and a pitcher of beer.
Right.
Because there's a lot that goes into, getting there and setting up and playing. And, but I also want to make sure the venues are successful, promoting them. If they're around, obviously the musicians have places to play. And then that third part is just having something for the community. And that's where, as a financial thing, it's probably not going to be the thing that, takes over my regular job, because I want to make sure that I can give back as part of the community itself. And so Angry Talent's been very fortunate to put funds together to donate for music-related causes, and giving to the MSU Music Community School for their tuition assistance program. Angry Talent has donated to both East Lansing Public Schools and Lansing Public Schools music programs. This year, we're very fortunate to give to Lansing Public Schools is starting a feeder program for a strings program so it helps to invest in like their instruments and just the little things like the strings and cleaning cloths and things like that.
Yeah, sure.
And so, it's been a big part of, I'm not here to pad, like I said, the website even says, it's not here to pad my own pockets. It's to be a part of the community and be able to provide and give back. Right
on. Well, where can we find you? Like, where can I hear you perform?
I pop out. I joke that I'm semi-retired, but I seem to pop out more often than a semi-retired person would. I will always plug my own solo shows. I don't do the duo anymore because I can't commit to that. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to make him have to wait for me all the time. But when I have a solo gig, I'll post it on Angry Talent as well.
Got it.
I promote myself.
Got it. All right. And remind us all of the websites and social handles.
AngryTalentEntertainment.com. Same thing with Facebook, Instagram. We're working towards TikTok, but we'll get there.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. We've been talking with the founder of Angry Talent Entertainment, Dan Laird. Appreciate all you're doing for the ecosystem. I'm a huge music fan, always looking for more music, and I'm grateful that you're out there making this happen.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And I want to give a final shout out to all my loyal sponsors: Forsberg Real Estate, Wagoner Financial, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. All are great people worth the call. And if you found the show as a one-off, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck signing off from Michigan Reimagined.